Walls and Friends, and as you can see, our couch got a little bit longer in between that commercial break. So we are going to have Mary come back and answer that question, but before she does that, we're going to introduce our new panelists. And so we have Ebony and Tim, and I'm going to pass the mic down. The question that the others have answered is, why are you choosing to be on this panel today? Why is this topic important to you? Okay?
Well, this topic is important to me because being in a marriage where domestic violence was prevalent, I dealt with a lot of things that I felt as though I might have been alone in the world, like no one else may have understood what I was going through. I kept a lot of things to myself, and it took a toll on the marriage. So I feel like being here today to be able to tell my story may entice other people to realize that they're not alone, that there's help out there. There's people who are going through or have gone through the same thing, and there are ways to either get out or get help, and you don't have to feel like you're alone.
I think it's important to me because
And we need you to speak up a little.
being on the other side, you have to realize that you have a problem. You know, sometimes it's hard as men. Sometimes it's hard to realize that you have a problem. So, you know, we're too caught up in ourselves or our jobs or our personal, you know, our personal things that we go through, and you know, we have to get help. We have to realize that we have a problem and get help. And I think it's very important to me because my wife said we've gone through a lot. You know, we've gone through a marriage, divorce, and remarried. You know, but you know, I had to, on my end, I had to realize that I had a problem, and I do suffer from a little bit of other things. I suffer from PTSD a little bit, and that was another big issue to our marriage. And again, I didn't realize that, and I had to get help. So if I could teach people out there and to speak up and to say, you know, I have a problem, I need to get help. It's okay to get help. And that's another area where us men, we don't, we're not truthful with ourselves and say that we need to get help. So I just want to let the other guys out there know that it's okay to say we have a problem.
Well, thank you, Ebony and Tim, for joining us. So we're going to pick up with the conversation, and we'll just include you right on in the flow, okay? So, Mary, you know, I'd asked you a question before commercial break, just about with the changing roles and so forth in society, and also the importance of understanding how our roles have changed in society, but also appreciating what each person brings to the relationship. But in addition to that, being a marriage and family therapist, I know you have some other thoughts that you'd like to share.
I want to do a courageous acknowledgement first before
Yes.
we continue in the theme of the conversation. The courageous acknowledgement is that we oftentimes look at or believe that it's always the men who abuse, and there are some statistics and in situations where women are the predominant predators and abuse men as well for unresolved issues that have helped them to not build healthy relationships. I just wanted to acknowledge that women do abuse as well.
Yeah.
But society, of course, always says it's all men, and predominantly it may be a larger number. I don't really know the statistics offhand, but they're running hand in hand with the way that life has shifted, the things that we are infused by. We experience trauma every single day. Every time you turn on the news, you're exposed to some type of traumatic event, and that goes into your energy. And until you're able to release that through exercise, through talking, through sharing an exchange with someone, which would resemble a healthy relationship, you end up carrying that in your spirit and then lashing out at people. And it can affect your professional as well as your personal relationships. And I think that that's important to kind of just take a moment to pay attention to the fact that everyone can be an abuser, unfortunately. And everyone can be impacted by just looking at the news or looking at aggressive TV shows or playing aggressive video games or the music that we enjoy. Like, if you put everything in perspective, you can also take it out of that perspective and it can have a negative connotation as well. So all of those things being thrown at us in different ways cause how we interact with other people.
Yes,
Before the break, we talked about violations.
yes.
And we also talked about religious templates or beliefs and values that people have. Those are really strongholds that challenge us, that we're constantly trying to be loyal to our upbringing or loyal to what it was that we were exposed to, be it religious and or the mirror within our home. And in the new age and in the new century, we should really look at shifting and making what's realistic to be healthy in our own home. And that can look different in each address as you have your values around food, your values around communication, your values around mental health, as well as emotional health. And having those courageous conversations to just be transparent and not having having a Q word within your relationship or partnership on how we're going to talk about this difficult thing and making it an appointment, if you will. Okay, well, at dinner time, we're going to engage in the game, or we're going to engage in talking about our finances for this week, and we have $200 to spend this week on activities, gas, and so forth, and we're going to discuss how that's going to be played out. And I'm minimizing it by just saying it's $200 for the week, but that creates the opportunity of open conversation, realistic of what's within our boundaries that we can and can't do. And those the same way that you would mirror that in other difficult conversations. So if you do it in everyday conversations, when it comes to the conversations that are difficult, that you have anger around or you have unresolved issues, or every time this person walks past you on the left versus the right, or every time your paper is balled up or the words are not written straight, you don't have to react and respond in a violent manner. And those are just little violations that occur, you know, every single day, even in traffic and so forth. So it's a matter of your perception and your perspective on how you put energy into realizing your role in a situation impacts and drives the energy to be a positive or negative.
I'm glad that you said that. You know, as I was talking with someone earlier, and I felt a rhyme getting ready to come on, you know, and in one of my other lives, I'm a pretend rapper. I don't let too many people know that. So, a pretend rapper, you know. And so I kept hearing in my head a collective perspective. And it was, what are we believing collectively? And so as you were talking about this idea of a society of violation, that's a collective perspective, that we are okay with violence in the sense of the video games that are put out there, the music that is a part of our, and I'm gonna call it our diet, because we're taking it into our body and it's not creating life. If we look at diet, it's spelled D-I-E-T. So these are things that are killing us, as opposed to putting things into our libet, things that will enhance our life. And so the collective perspective, do we have a collective perspective of health, a collective perspective of healing? And that's what this is today. And so Mary, you used the phrase, you said courageous, you said you wanted to be
Courageous shift.
No, it was
Courageous conversation.
No, that wasn't it. It was courageous something else. Anybody remember what she said?
Acknowledgement.
Courageous acknowledgement.
Yes.
Yes, I was about to say courageous kudos. But courageous acknowledgement. And to acknowledge each of you for coming on the panel and sharing your stories. Because very much so, Anthony and Timothy, to sit up here in front of a group of people who you don't know in a space that you don't know if it's safe yet or not, because y'all don't know me, but y'all are going like, all right, lady, I'm going to trust you for a moment, right? But to share that part of your story, and for Ebony to come and share this part of the journey as well. I think we should give them a round of applause. Now, on Dr. Walls and Friends, and I have my new little logo over here, and y'all can see it on the table back there. On my show, I always have a tambourine. And whenever I hear something that excites me or something that I feel as though needs to be emphasized, it's like an exclamation point, I shake a tambourine. Of all days, I have what? Forgotten my tambourine. But I always got to back up because I keep a tambourine app on my phone. All right, so there's no reason why we should ever be without a tambourine. So, and it works too. All right, now, You can also do your hands like this. Let me see everybody do their hands like this. And you can do both hands. I just got this thing in my hand. So we can do both hands. All right. And so for that, I would like to give y'all a tambourine shake for being here and for sharing this part, because you're right, we all do, it's okay to ask for help. And many times we forget that it's okay to ask for help, or we assume that asking for help is a sign of weakness. Or that, and Ebony, I'm gonna gear this one to you, is that sometimes things start to happen to us that we know are not appropriate, but we start to feel embarrassed about it. Can you expand more on that? Let me pass the mic down.
I've definitely had moments where I was more so embarrassed and shocked to say that this is not happening to me, which made me more so put it behind myself to say, oh, it's not real, I'm not going to deal with it. And it's not okay to do that. It's not okay to feel that way, you know, because then you start, it starts turning into words that were said, then it's physical, and then you're just starting to accept that this is my way of life, this is just how it's going to be. But actually realizing, like I said before, that there's help out there, that there's people out there who have gone through this, and reaching out, which is what I did, which is how I found the love and peace through my fellow friend Herman. You know, that help was, it made me realize that I'm not alone. And when I did reach out, the embarrassment went away, and I realized that it was something serious that I needed to take care of, and not just for myself, but for my husband. You know, because when I met him, he was not this person. So I knew it wasn't him. I knew he was sick. And, you know, trying to de-escalate situations, I knew that if I tried my best, that maybe it would help him, and maybe he would realize that it's not you, I don't fault you, but we can't get through this. So definite feelings of embarrassment, not wanting to tell your family, not wanting to let your friends know this is what you're going through at home, but being scared to go home because you don't know when the bomb is gonna go off, what trigger words not to say, and then having all this go through in front of your children and not knowing what to tell them because you don't come from this type of home, you don't come from this background, you don't have any experience in this situation, and you don't know anyone who does to turn to. So it's hard, but also realizing that it's also hard as the doer when they don't acknowledge, and helping them get help to help both of you. So,
Tim, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Again, it was the opposite for me. You know, she was embarrassed about, she said, my wife said she felt that, you know, she was alone. It took for me to be alone to realize that I had a problem. So, unfortunately, when I was younger, I did grow up around domestic violence, and a lot of people don't realize how much that plays a role, because, and I think a big part that made me change, like she said, we have 2 kids. I have a little daughter. My daughter's 5, and my son's 7. And I remember at my son's age seeing what I saw, and I still remember it vivid to this day. So I had to really pretty much think about, all right, he knows what I'm going through, and for a long time I held resentment to my dad, and I didn't want him to go through the same thing, and I didn't want him to have that resentment against me, because as guys, you know, our love and our heart is our sons, you know. So I didn't want him to go through that, and like I said, it took for me to be alone, because once you're alone, you don't have anybody to turn to. So you gotta do some soul searching and actually look in the mirror and
That's what
find
Anthony
yourself.
was saying. That's right. Hold that mirror up. Anthony, is there anything you would like to add to what they've shared?
Yes, pretty much. Just piggyback off of what you just said. Like, I got 3 daughters. First and foremost, I look at them as us being males, we shouldn't tear our women down. You know, like, I'm trying to build my daughters to have, you know, higher self-esteem morals, principles, and respect about themselves, how they carry themselves, how they conduct themselves, the mannerism, just, all the above. Like not too long ago, I just started a foundation, whereas we feed the homeless like twice a week. We're in process of actually starting urban garden. We got access to like 3 lots right now. So any positive thing that I do, I like, my daughters and my son too. So that way that at least they see this is what a man is supposed to treat me like. So at least, when they do experience certain things, they can go back and look at, well,
That's right.
Daddy embraced and installed these certain values and principles into us. So, and the key thing is though, that I never had that. Walked right past my father the same day he died. Died from shooting dope. Never used it for an excuse. I try to avoid that by dealing with different women or certain things like that. I was an inhabitant person of excuses. Nah, that's not being a man. You gotta look in the mirror at yourself. Look at it. You got a sickness, buddy. You better handle that. You're getting older now. You're not a boy no more. You're responsible for 4 other individuals. So, one thing with me now, like, I don't tolerate excuses. I try to tell, a lot of men, to piggyback off of what you just said too, it goes both ways because a lot of women don't know how to treat men. So that goes both ways. So the thing is that I look at, seek professional help. That's it. That's all. So that way, when that volcano about to erupt, you know what to do. My motto is, I'm Muslim. What we do, you make the wudu. Wudu is ablution. It's like putting water over fire. Go somewhere, meditate. The whole key thing is just finding out, what's best for yourself. Self-preservation, get to know who you are. So.
Perfect. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I'm going to share some statistics that were recently from the National Domestic Violence Hotline 2014 statistics. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to ask 2 of the 2 gentlemen from the religious affiliations to talk a little bit more about how do you deal with domestic violence when it comes to your awareness within the religious institution. So we'll be back shortly on Dr. Walls and Friends. The Greatest Soul Journey by Dr. Kathleen E. Walls is a workbook-style journal designed to assist you in taking an honest look at your life. This journal will provide you with clarity and help you assess your life, your relationships, your thoughts and beliefs, and the ways in which you are working toward your greatest life. For copies of The Greatest Soul Journey, go to AskDrWalls.com. That's AskDrWalls.com. And remember, live your greatest life. Welcome back to Dr. Walls and Friends, and yes, that is me in surround sound. So, technology is an amazing thing when we can work it out. All right, so we are back from commercial break, but I do definitely want to make some announcements. Remember to be sure to check out our vendors, and then coming up at 5 o'clock, we have a self-defense demonstration and some very hands-on as well as, obviously, and so practical skills for people to use and learn, and that will be by Mike Andreas. He was just on my radio show the first Tuesday in October, and you can also go to the YouTube channel. We've done some videos before, but he's going to do a demonstration for us today and teach you just some very simple techniques. So please be sure to stick around for that. Also following this segment, one of our panelists has to go run and do some parent duties. So we are going to let's take a moment and thank Anthony for being with us for the time that he shared. Let's give him a round of applause. And so the couch will shrink a little bit after that commercial break. All right. So welcome back to Dr. Walls and Friends. As I said, I'm going to share some statistics with you and some definitions with you because we've been talking about domestic violence, but sometimes we don't have a full scope of what that means. And it was very interesting because last year when we did a Time to Help, a Time to Heal, we had several people come up at the end of the event and say, oh my goodness, I didn't know I had been in a domestic violent relationship because it hadn't been physical violence. They hadn't recognized that there's the emotional abuse, that there is the mental abuse, there's financial abuse. And as I was researching for this panel, now there's even another category which is called reproduction abuse. And I said, I had never even thought about that before. But it was the idea that the person keeps wanting you either to get pregnant or keeps asking you to terminate pregnancies. And so it's the control over having children and, you know, having them in short succession right after each other. So 9 months, 11 months, and so forth. And I said, wow. And so it all comes back, though, to the definition of abuse. And I'm going to read the definition that the National Domestic Violence Hotline provides, and you can go online and find them. And they say abuse is a repetitive pattern of behaviors to maintain power and control over an intimate partner. These are behaviors that physically harm, arouse fear, prevent a partner from doing what they wish, or force them to behave in ways they do not want. Abuse includes the use of physical and sexual violence, threats and intimidation, emotional abuse, and economic deprivation. Many of these different forms of abuse can be going on at the same time. And so it goes back to that power and control over somebody. When we look at some of the statistics that are spoken or that currently are listed, it says on average, 24 people per minute are victims of rape, physical violence, or stalking by an intimate partner in the United States. More than 12 million women and men over the course of a year. Nearly 3 in 10 women, 29%, and 1 in 10 men in the U.S. have experienced rape, physical violence, and or stalking by a partner and report a related impact on their functioning. Nearly 15% of women and 4% of men have been injured as a result of interpersonal violence that include rape, physical violence, and or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men aged 18 and older in the United States have been the victim of severe physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. And more than 1 in 3 women and more than 1 in 4 men in the United States, I read that one. Nearly half of all women and men in the United States have experienced psychological aggression by an intimate partner in their lifetime. And females aged 18 to 24 and 25 to 34 generally experience the highest rates of intimate partner violence. And as many of our panelists have mentioned already, those who were exposed to domestic violence when they were younger, forms of abuse when they were younger, tend to also be involved either in relationships of abuse when they're older, either being the victim and or being the abuser. So it is very important when Anthony talks about how he has really now changed the way in which you use your hands. You now talking about gardening, talking about feeding the homeless. There's such a peace and love that comes with you using your hands and now showing your children a different way. So before you get ready to exit, what are some final words that you'd like to share with the audience?
Pretty much, God willing, that this actually will help touch many as possible as I can, to let any male know that sit back, recollect back, think before you even touch a woman, or acknowledge, look in the mirror. You sit, comb your hair, brush your hair, beard, whatever it is, try to beautify yourself, look at, you have a mental sickness with yourself. So I look at the reality of it, try to seek professional help. That's all. Just don't be egotistical, don't be proud about what you do. Real men don't have pride. We're not egotistical. We have emotions just like everybody else. We're human. It's okay. Seek the professional help that's needed.
Thank you, yes.
Thank you very much. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, that chair will be just a little bit shorter. All right, we'll be right back.